Hey everyone, it's Craig Veroni with RE/MAX Masters Realty. Welcome to My Favorite Humans in Vancouver, episode number 5. Now, I told you that today's episode was going to be very special, and it is. We're sitting down with 5 incredible women today from my alma mater, Studio 58. Not only that, but this episode is going to be filmed entirely in 360 degrees, as you can see. So it's going to be like you're right in the middle of the room, the table, with myself and the 5 women as we sit down, have some tea, amazing food, and incredible discussion. So without further ado, why don't you come join me and meet the Fabulous 5.
Oh, we're 5th on the list. I'd say that's pretty low on the list. If this were C-term, you would have failed.
He's trying to do his best.
I'm Wendy Gorling, and I've taught at Studio for 42 years, I think. And I teach physical theater, which means mime, mask, puppetry, movement to music, and I teach first term acting.
My name's Dale Genge. I was the head of voice training at Studio 58 for 35 years, starting from the foundation of the body and the breath and the voice, right through into working with classical text. And I had the privilege of working with people from the first year right through to their final term. So it was a very precious and special time.
My name's Jane Heyman. I taught at Studio 58 for about 20 years. For some of that time, I was the associate director in the program, and I taught acting with Kathryn and Wendy and a number of other people, and I taught the students from first term right through to the end of 6th term, and as Dale said, that was a real privilege to do.
I'm Kathryn Shaw. I'm the real lifer at Studio 58. I started teaching there in 1974, part-time, and in 1985 I became the artistic director. So I've been the person who's been responsible for choosing the seasons, for choosing the directors, the designers, all that kind of thing. I also teach acting. I basically teach 2nd and 3rd term acting and then oversee the students when they're in their, from that point on in productions and things like that.
My name is Sherri Sadler, and this month marks my 30th year at Studio 58 as communications manager. I call myself sort of a bit of a den mother to 70 students, so I help them acclimatize to Vancouver if they're new to Vancouver, and do a little bit of administrative work with the college, and then I publicize the program and the shows. So media relations, PR, marketing, advertising, all of the above.
And the reason you all hold such a special place in my heart is because the training was invaluable.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to do so many amazing things in my life. Other than perform on a stage or be in a television show or a film.
Well, those transferable skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
We list them on our website now.
And
these are all the other professions you could do.
Is that true?
It's true.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think that's why good arts training, it's what you're saying, is the best preparation for living a full life that has some meaning ever.
Yeah.
Whether you actually intend to be a professional artist or not, to me, is irrelevant. And it's one of the things that I loved about working at Studio 58 and why I'm still connected. Because absolutely, you get really good training for the theater, but you get so much more.
And like you say, everything that we teach is going to affect your life. You're not going to see the world the same when you go out of a program like that than when you came in.
And I will say, just because I deal with people from the moment they become interested, and then when they come out the other side, they're completely transformed people. And think back to how much you changed between like 18 and 21 or 21 and 24. There's a lot of growth there.
Well, you become an adult.
I mean, there are schools where you can tell that somebody came out of that place because they're all more or less the same, because they're all copying a particular way of being or a particular instructor. And what was great about Studio 58 was that there was such a multiplicity of influences, and we were all different in the way we approached it. I think we were all in agreement about the essence of what we're doing, but there were no gurus, right? And so ultimately, you guys had to make up your own minds.
That's a great segue into my question. In an industry typically dominated by men, Studio 58 was very unique. Most of the faculty, at the time that I was there anyway, were women. So we had the artistic director, associate director, voice teacher, acting teacher, communications director, tap teacher. And I think that this is one of the things that made Studio 58 so successful and unique. Now, it didn't occur to me at the time that this was different. Now I can reflect on it. I'd like to hear from each of you. Was that tricky? Was that easy? What was it like for you? Were you aware of this?
Oh, I was very
Kathryn
aware.
was aware.
When I took over from Anthony Holland in 1985, it was, may he rest in peace, but it was a complete hodgepodge.
Yeah, it sure was.
It was a mess. And so I was able to kind of select who I was going to continue on with. And I did. And so I selected the people, that I thought were going to work that had been there for a while. I can't even remember if it was conscious or unconscious now, but I think it was sort of conscious. So there ended up being a lot of women.
But it must have been forefront for most of you, because this was one of the top programs in the country with a faculty predominantly women. How do you think you were perceived just locally here with the?
I never thought about it.
Oh, I thought about it.
Neither
all the
did
time.
I.
I didn't think about it much.
No.
Partly because there were male colleagues in the department. We had collegiality, and the collegiality, whether it was men or women, was set very strong. Kathryn created that.
Yeah.
But I think that was there because it was a predominantly, because the department was run by a woman, and there were very few, if any, that were run.
Yeah.
At that time, no.
At that time.
No.
We would periodically have students who complained about the fact that there were too many women, and I think our answer was, well, you've got the whole rest of the country if what you really want is
Go somewhere else.
a program
and they're
that's
all
predominantly male. And one of the reasons that I agreed to come to work with Kathryn, because in the dim, dark history of our past is an argument that we had, and we're still not agreed on whose decision it was, but I did not want to come and teach. I said, I'll come and direct for you, but I'm quitting teaching. I don't want to do this anymore. And then at the end of this argument on the phone, I agreed to come because we agreed to team teach, and Kathryn says it was my idea, and I'm sure it was her
Absolutely,
idea.
It was your idea, Jane. It was your idea.
But like that's
This
the point.
argument has been
We
going
don't
on for
remember.
30 years.
and well, she remembers and I remember completely differently. But the point was that we agreed from the get-go that we were going to figure out how to collaborate. And I can't think of any other place that I've ever worked where that happened and where that was structural. And I think that's a huge difference, and it's because it was a program that was predominantly women.
I remember I was just the, not just, I was the physical theater person. But I would go into one or both of their classes and to see what the acting was about, because I was trained in a totally different way. And so these gals would say things like, well, your objective, you weren't following your objective and the goals, and I think, I don't know what they're seeing. What is it? So I don't know if you know, but the double classes when I finally started to teach were so tense for me. And especially if I had to give the critique first. But if I gave the critique second, as they were giving their critique in the tiniest writing possible so they could never see, I would write down those words. And then afterwards I would look at them. Okay, goals. Okay, it's about actions. Okay, I saw that. And so really the two of them taught me how to act and how to teach acting.
Well, the lesson here, folks, is even the teachers fake it till they make it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well-
and we continue to learn from each other.
Yeah.
That's super important. And Kathryn's brilliant at throwing out, okay, yeah, that's working, but what about trying this? I mean, and we continue to do that every single year.
I fully agree with what you're saying, because my take on everything at Studio 58 was women get shit done,
That's for sure.
right?
That is for sure.
Women get shit done. And like you said, if it wasn't working, we tossed it out. There was no clinging to something because we feel like it's got to, we can make it work. It was like,
We allowed ourselves to fail in front of you, like to be able to say, "Wow, you know what? I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
Let's do this now."
the school's been 53 years now? 53 years.
Yeah.
I remember the 50th anniversary. I mean, in our introductions, we heard how many teaching years you announced. So, you've all given a sizable chunk of your lives to teaching, to the program, to the students. Can you talk a little bit about the why for you? Fun.
It was fun. It was always fun. I mean, nobody was more surprised than I when I realized I'd been there for 20 years. It wasn't a career choice. It wasn't not a career choice. It just wasn't something that I picked. It was something that was a gift. Thank you, Kathryn. And that it came to me and I kept going. Even when it was a struggle, I was enjoying it. I was learning something. And I was working with people that I loved and that I love,
I didn't know much about Studio 58. I mean, I'd be taken, like met my car and I never would have found it. And then I got the job and realized that I found my tribe. And then, because with my personality, I need things to change a lot. And even though I've been in a job for 30 years, which was never really a plan, it changes all the time. So it's constantly evolving and morphing and keeps me on my toes and keeps me challenged. So that's, I've thought about it a lot. That's why I've stayed.
You've been there the longest.
Yeah. I trained as an actor, but I always knew I wasn't going to be one. I always knew that what I was really interested in was teaching and directing. Anyway, when I came back to Vancouver, everybody said, "Oh, you should go talk to Tony Holland. You should go talk to Tony Holland." So I went to Tony and I basically told him he was going to hire me, which he did. I just kept staying there. I knew I wanted that job and I wanted to run that program because I could see what the potential was and I thought I could sort the mess out that was developing. I was going to keep that department going no matter what we were encountering, and I went through 2 different threats to cut the program completely, to eliminate it, or to make to devastate it. And I've got a fighting spirit, so I stayed in there for that. There were so many aspects to it that gave me enough joy and enough fun, and working with the team and, team teaching and then teaching people how to teach. Yeah, I certainly never get bored. That's what I will say. I can't ever remember thinking I was bored while I've been there.
The joy for me of teaching was Kathryn is tenacious. I have an insatiable curiosity. I'm so curious about life. So when I'm working with people, it's what's going to work for that person to help them become more of who they are, to help them become an artist. And through the medium of voice and body and breath and text. So I had I had the best job in the world because I was creating it with the person who was in front of me. And to be insatiably curious about what it is that could make something blossom in that moment. And what we teach applies to any art, any communication, standing, breathing, speaking, communicating, being in relationship. Since I've retired, and as I was retiring, I started to think about the teachers, here we are, in my life, and how the signposts in my life were set by someone who said, go a little to the right, go a little to the left. And when I look back at it, I think, oh my God, these people, these teachers, created the line of my life. Mm-hmm. And I realize that that's what we do too. Mm-hmm. That we're creating that destiny thread, however it works out. Whether you become an actor, whether you're not an actor, there's a destiny thread that people are following. And Wendy talks about this too, that you have a calling and a quest.
Like Dale said, I like to talk about the quest and who's on the quest and who's not. And it's infuriating to me when they think that the quest is a paved road. Right? And that paved road, we all know, yeah, you could take the freeway from one place to the other, but that's really boring. You know, you go on the other routes and there you will find the magic. I adore young people because they keep me vibrant. Yeah. I understand the modern world because I have teachers. I have 15 to 16 new teachers every semester keeping me relevant. And I don't want to be a person, Craig, that doesn't understand these young kids and, oh my God, look at that purple hair. All of us have known wonderful artists who said, this is how I rebel. And I'm there to say, great, rebel, but really go full into rebellion and do exactly what you want to do, then I'll support you.
I know the impact Studio 58 has had on the local art scene is indelible. Can you speak a little bit more or have some other insight into what impact Studio 58 has had here on the local art scene?
I can tell you one thing. The students that come out of our school, they're not afraid to make art. They understand how to do new work.
Well, they came out of a school that created an ensemble, an ever-changing ensemble. So they come out of a school that actively taught them how to collaborate and how to work hard because it's tough. And our students, our graduates, come out knowing the fullness of what this art form is.
There's been so many years that you've all been teaching. Any one moment, proudest teaching moment, biggest failure, most interesting moment?
I hope you're not going to go around the room because right now my mind is a blank.
For the first time ever, ladies and gentlemen.
For me, it was standing in the middle of the faculty lounge, surrounded by grads at the 50th anniversary.
Oh yeah,
That was getting emotional. And looking around, going, I know every single face in this room. Hundreds of people.
Well, and you've had an impact on every one of those faces.
And feeling that, right? Kind of standing at my door like it was a receiving line of people going by, and it was amazing.
I don't have one, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, those moments when I saw a human being become an artist and commit to themselves, commit to their vision, commit to their voice, whatever that voice was going to be, and suddenly a voice would just come to life. I go, there, they did it, they did it, they did it. They found that moment where they could blossom, and those moments of blossoming. And there were thousands of them. That, to me, was the joy.
I think for me it's, well, maybe if I only get to pick one, it's how many of the people I've taught went on to become my friends and my colleagues. And that's a real gift, and that we stay in touch. I mean, hello, Craig. How many years ago was it that we were creating that show about Commercial Drive? I mean, that we were constantly giving people not just the skills, but we're actually, we're manifesting the idea of quest. We're saying you have to look at where are you in your own story? How does your story connect to other people's story? And that's very humbling to be able to witness that.
Well, it's one of the reasons you're all sitting here today, because it's been 20 years since I graduated, and there isn't a day that goes by or a week that goes by that one of you pops into my life in some way or another. Every single one of you. And I love it. I love the reminiscing of it. I love the rediscovery of that moment, of whatever it may be that you've imparted to me or to us. And then I love the forward movement of it, implementing it in a new way. As you said, that thread of your life, the teachers that said go a little bit this way, a little bit that way. There were 3 years of learning from every single one of you that at some point consistently comes back to me. And it's pretty amazing. And it's one of the reasons that when I first thought of My Favorite Humans in Vancouver, the 5 of you were one of the first people that I wanted to get together. Because I thought, here are 5 amazing women who've had such a profound impact on so many lives, whether they graduated from the program or not.
Yeah.
And knowing how much that learning, the gifts that were given, has changed and impacted my own life, I wanted to be able to share that with other people in Vancouver. And there's a debate that's been raging since my graduation that we're going to put to rest today.
Okay.
Yes.
Every single graduate has their own opinion of this. But now that we're all on camera, we can admit right now, right? I was your favorite student. Nobody's saying yes.
You were a mug. For me, it's you in the overcoat.
Oh, darn, you would have,
Oh,
that was
gosh, that-
mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely memorable.
What a magical show that was.
Yeah, and weren't you wonderful in the overcoat?
Oh, that was my
Yeah.
Thank you.
second moment. If I had a second one, was standing at the back of the house on that opening night, just seeing an audience
Yeah.
an audience just like leap,
Yeah.
leap, and
Yeah.
it was unbelievable.
Magical.
Never before or since.
There was a moment in rehearsal where we actually had the machines and we were getting close to opening.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it, and Morris slapped his legs and stared at us and just said, "If that doesn't fucking get a standing ovation, I'm leaving this town."
Yeah.
That was pretty overwhelming as a student, right?
Right.
To have impressed someone so
And
much.
you were all students.
Can I say one more thing that I think you probably are hearing it, but to make it as a statement, these the 5 of us adore our students,
Mm-hmm.
and we have dedicated ourselves to keeping them safe while they learn about themselves and while they venture out into the land of imagination. But at the core, it's because we care deeply for them and want only their happiness and their excitement to do what they really want to do.
So I know that you're still limited on space, you're still limited on facilities, all that stuff, and there is a scholarship, or there's something set up that can help people who want to contribute to the program, is there not?
Yeah.
Well, we had a legacy fundraising campaign, and now we have another fundraising campaign. We're calling it the annual giving campaign.
Annual giving campaign, and
A lot of marriages have that.
Anyway, yeah, it's through the Langara College Foundation. There's also lots of individual scholarships people can donate to, and but through the Langara College Foundation, there's now this annual giving campaign, which helps us continue to do the things that we want to do.
So other than coming and seeing a show and supporting the program, if you feel generous and want to donate, you have a number of options.
Yes.
Support
certainly. And
these
we-
young
we-
artists who are
Yeah.
going to be the foundation of Canadian culture.
Yeah, and we certainly welcome all donations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Great.
the
opportunity.
It was a
Thanks for creating it.
I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of My Favorite Humans in Vancouver. The food, the tea, the conversation, everything was fantastic. And hey, if you've ever been to Studio 58, whether you're an ex-student, a current student, an alumni, whether you've seen a play there or not, you just like the program, please show them some love, like this video, share this video. These women are incredible. They've done so much for not only the students but the theater community here in Vancouver, and I know they'd appreciate your love. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day, and remember, this is where you live, love, own Vancouver. See you next time.